Okay, here I'm going to throw this one out, still on the drumline topic. The band, the horn players and guard members, the other members of the band not in the drumline, often think that the drumline is very cool. It's cool to be in the drumline. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Does the drumline think the trumpets are cool?
Yeah.
And so I throw them a loaded question because this is definitely something we work on.
Yeah.
It is probably bar none in our spring feedback the most commented on topic is intersection relations. That there are no agendas because marching band is a culture where students live in the identity of their section. I ride the trumpet bus. I have the color guard sweatshirt. I argue over the years, I don't want you to identify with the brand identity of Spartan Drumline. I want you to identify with the brand identity of Spartan Band, of which you are a member of one section that's the drumline, and yet you can't take students out of their culture, and you can't operate marching band without sections having section leadership, section efficiency, and things like that. So, anybody chime in on this? This is kind of has been a goal for us, but it's something we observe as a challenge and something we have to stay with. And I think it's universal out there. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on that, about the drum line's kind of road to hoe in terms of that being a better thing for us?
Yeah, again, knowing your role within the larger group, and there would be, first of all, they understand there would be no drumline without the band, and
right.
And there's of course a lot of individual pride in what they do, and even within the drumline, the snare section has an identity, and the tenor section has an identity, and
right.
But yeah, I think they see everyone else working for the same goal. They see the trumpet players out there beforehand, sections, they see the guard and all the extra time each day doing sectional before band and everything, and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think that they understand. I think one of the things that by nature, we're kind of isolated in drill, as you said, and we're isolated in sectionals, and so a lot of times there may not be as much interaction as a lot of the other sections have.
Right.
But I think that if they see that everyone is working for that same goal, it just bonds everybody, I think, together.
And I think it's important to note that this doesn't happen on its own. If you just left this sort of as a dormant issue and hope, that all the students will understand that the band has to get along, I think the sections climb deeper and deeper into their own culture. And I use culture in a positive way. This is not a negative term. And often a culture is something that does have a negative connotation to it when you're talking about a group dynamic. Like that culture over there is a bad culture. And we need to weed out the undesirable part of that culture. No, we want people to live large in the identity of the section, just not at the expense of the ensemble. So if you leave it dormant, I think you can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be harder to reel back in. So this is always on our list with the students, and the students are the one that maybe felt it moving away a little bit, and that's what came up in the spring. But directors, staff, people at the top of the organization need to constantly make it an agenda item that is introduced every year in terms of a new priority. And I think the thing that goes hand in hand with that is the things that make this easier, that is continuing to talk about that we operate in an atmosphere of respect for each other, and that's universal, and that there are behavioral expectations, and that we all represent the whole. And those are maybe sometimes hard things to talk about for some people. I find it real easy to talk about that because in our case we represent something so large, a university with 45,000 students. We wear the insignia on our uniform. It says Michigan State on the sleeve. We get the privilege to travel and represent and be on recordings and CDs and on television, and those are big things. So those are big time issues. I don't think it's any less big time if you reduce it down to a small town school. A small town school has the same responsibilities, maybe on a smaller scale, but the same kind of responsibility issues to represent the whole.
I think that it's very important, at least I try to do this with a color guard, is that they not only realize their responsibility, but responsibility as an ensemble, how what they represent is part of the big picture.
Yeah.
The drum line, the cohesiveness between the drum line, which is the heartbeat of the band, the music, the instrumentation, which provides the music, so that they can provide the visual support, but not feeling like we're just the color guard, we're out there trying to take over. It's all about the ensemble, and it's about achievement and performance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot that the staff can do to support that without sort of necessarily legislating it or something like that. When the band sees the staff interacting really well and working together, and sees the directors valuing the opinion of the drumline instructor or the guard instructor, I think what happens too often is that the guard and the drumline will spend a long time away from the band, then they'll put it together perhaps on a too short of a timetable, and then when the director sees the guard or the drumline for the first time, they start by calling them out for causing problems or because things aren't fitting well together. And I think a lot can be gained by the directors being aware of the drumline, the color guard, calling attention to them when they're doing things well, and also making sure that that the students see the staff interacting well, getting along.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a good segue, because I have on my list the next thing, and this is talking now. We're past the spring. We're past the design process. We've kind of created a stream of consciousness list of goals and expectations that the staff agrees on, the student leaders agree on. We've created our atmosphere map. We know what we want every rehearsal to be like. Students have been, supplied the information about what we expect of them. So now we're going to get into a technical conversation about rehearsing. So, I think teaching a marching band rehearsal or the rehearsal techniques of running marching band have a lot of specific technologies that are different than the concert band rehearsal. But I think most of what we do in the marching band is similar to what we do in the concert band. Band directors are trained in music departments and schools of music and colleges of music, and they're musicians. And yet there are a lot of things when running a marching band rehearsal that imitate more of what a coach might do in breaking down a fundamental, and then motivating a higher level of performance. A concert band rehearsal remains on an artistic side and a fundamental side and a pedagogical side, but there's a lot of merging of these two things. So let's just talk about a couple things. You talked about the nature of this being separate. So the beginning of our rehearsal starts. We do sort of a traditional startup of rehearsal, and I think it sets a really good tone. The band falls in at parade rest. The drum major calls the band to attention. The attention command segues into a roll-off, and the band plays the fight song. And they mark time, and they do the traditional Michigan State stuff. And at the break strain of the tune, where we would sing, the students greet each other. The squad leaders walk out of the attendance block, and they have a routine. And they high five and they shake hands, and the drum majors run around the back. And there's it's if you were watching this rehearsal for the first time, you'd go, "Oh my God, this is so organized at the beginning." Well, it's just the tradition. We do this every time. Interestingly, we haven't warmed up yet. It's always one of my problems. We have the tradition of playing the fight song, but we haven't carefully warmed up. Now, they may have had sectionals and all that stuff, so I'm splitting a hair here.